Today we've got to talk about NVIDIA and how their earnings is coming up very, very soon and will have big impacts on the market. We're also going to talk about IWM. We're going to revisit the bonds, and we're going to talk a little bit about emerging markets and a few other interesting things. The miners are kind of not doing very much today. I guess I'll touch on them at the very end, but not a lot is going on there today that I'm aware of. Perhaps I'll find something later on to talk about and do a second video, but for now we're going to focus on those things. So let's get right into that. So Wednesday, May 22nd, we've got NVIDIA earnings. This is going to drive the market. In fact, I would not be surprised to see the market not do a whole lot until these earnings are out and we see where NVIDIA is going to drive from here. If we quickly look at this chart here, you can see we are currently in a fairly aggressive ascending channel. We broke this descending one here. Now we could vacillate here between, let's say, 958 and about 921-ish before running for the highs and possibly $1,000 again. If earnings are good, I would not be surprised to see NVIDIA run to $1,000. But right now, as you can see, it's in a little bit of a holding pattern that it has been in since last Wednesday and probably will remain in until earnings is out. And once earnings, if it's good, we're going to just go to the moon on NVIDIA here really quickly. The next thing I wanted to talk about is IWM. We haven't looked at IWM in a while, and that's because last time I talked about it, it was coming up testing this line right here, this 210 line. In fact, let me just make that 210 exactly. Coordinates 210. Okay, it was coming up on that line. It tested it once, twice, and failed and came all the way back down to 191. Now it's testing that area again. Now, something to keep in mind is it is doing an ascending channel, which tend to break to the downside on its way up there. Now, we might come down to the 20, or right now I think this is the 13. So let me go ahead and change that to the 20. Yeah, it's the 13. Let's go ahead and make that the 20. It may come down to the 20, which is right now is currently at 202, and then try to charge back up over 210. Now, as we've mentioned before on the channel here, this is highly sensitive to interest rates. We see interest rate cuts, we very well likely will see IWM do some sort of rise, at least in the short term, off of those interest rate cuts, because these unprofitable companies now have access to debt again. So keep that in mind while trading with IWM. The other thing that is very interesting about IWM is Stanley Druckenmiller, one of the legendary investors, actually recently sold shares of NVIDIA, which is here, right? Here's what Druckenmiller did as he sold NVIDIA, right? He sold NVIDIA and invested 15% of his proceeds into IWM calls. So that is actually quite bullish here. Now, who knows when those expire? It could be a year, it could be 2 years. Like the usually big players like that do leaps. So this could be something that, a call for a year out, a call for two, as far out as it goes. So it could be a really long, far out call, much like my calls on the Bitcoin miners right now. But that is a very interesting thing to consider and take in when you're thinking about IWM. Like it's been, knocking on 210 for a while now. If I turn off the SMAs, you can see that it has been slowly, accumulating down here between 199 and 163, honestly, since 2022. Yeah, since early 2022. And once it breaks over this 210, it could easily move right up into like 227s, 230s, and maybe even run for the highs again. So this 210 really is and has been an area that it's been struggling to get above, honestly, since December 2023, where it slightly got above where it had been struggling for a while, which was 199. So it first struggled at 199 for a while, touched it once, twice, three times, broke through a little bit on the fourth time before coming down, doing a double bottom and running for 210. Now, are we going to do a similar sort of thing where we're going to come down, maybe do a double bottom off of 200 this time, and then crush 210 and run up into the 230s? That's something to keep into consideration. But the fact that Stanley Druckenmiller is now interested in IWM, that also has me looking at IWM for a potential move sometime in the next 12 months. So that's really interesting and nice. Let's take a look at the bonds. The bonds here. If we take a look at the bonds, let me get rid of this. So that's too distracting. It's in a falling wedge. This is a weekly chart, by the way. So each of these represents 1 week. When rates take a cut, this is going to go big, right? You see this falling wedge here. marked with these lines, falling wedges tend to break to the upside. When it breaks to the upside, it's fairly likely to move back to the top of the move fairly quickly, which in this case would be about 67. It might overshoot it since everyone's been super excited for rate cuts. It might overshoot it and even go up into the $75 range here, potentially. And that would be very exciting if that were to happen. But it is currently in a falling wedge. We're waiting for the rate cuts. The first rate cuts are going to represent something very exciting the um, for the bonds. So keep your eyes on the bonds, watch them. When we see a break of this wedge, and we get an interest rate cut, this could be very exciting, very fast. All right, let's take a look real quick at some emerging markets. Now, this here is FXI. This is basically the Chinese market. Now, if I turn off the SMAs really quick, you can see it's been in a pretty brutal downtrend for a while here since 2020, beginning of 2023. Honestly, its downtrend has been happening since 2021. It's been in a pretty brutal downtrend that finally started to flip here. And we're seeing this structurally build up slower. It's not like this V shape back here, which obviously came back down very harshly. We're starting to see a slow build, which rocketed off sometime in April. Now, we've missed the initial run up. Yes, that has happened. But take a look here. If we come back down, test is this the 20 or the 13? It's the 13. If we come back down here, and we test the 20, $27. So currently we're at $29. We come back, curl over, test the 20 at $27. Heck, if we even just test the 5, because we've been using the 5 as support since April 30th. It went once, twice, 3 times. It could be the 4th time before we crush over $29, getting into the $30 level, which we haven't been in since July of 2023. So it's been a year. We could do that and come over it, or if we come down to the 20 and then launch over it. That'd be very exciting. Let me remove all the drawings on here. I just want to see the SMAs. Okay. We'd be looking at that. And let me draw a line just right here. Right about here. Okay, lock that down. We could come down to the 20 and then start building up from there and go quickly over the 30, over that $30 range on that. So that's something to keep in mind because China has been stimulating its economy. It has been causing their market to get a bit frothy. Their thing that is starting to take off. They have been injecting, they're doing QE. The US is now also kind of doing some backdoor QE as well. So this is really important to pay attention to as well if you are interested in markets outside of the United States. If you're looking at those emerging markets, they are taking off. They actually have taken off already. They're looking at a little bit of a cooling period right now that I'd be looking for. And then once it starts showing that it is ready to launch again, or if it hits the 5-day here and starts taking off from there, I'd be very interested once more. Now you can see on the daily candles, it's very gappy, and that's because they're trading while we're sleeping. And when things open up, that's when you see the moves, usually, especially coming out of China, being 18 hours ahead of where I currently am. So I'd be watching for it to either bounce off the 5, or if it misses the 5, bouncing off the 20. But we are above the 50 and the 200 right now. All the SMAs are starting to fan out in an upward direction, which is the direction you want to see them starting to fan out in. And even if price came back down to the 20, I would still be pretty bullish on this. And I am watching it now and taking it into my mind, like which stocks out of China I'd be interested in, something like JD or BABA or PDD or a few others that I'm watching right now for that. So that's all I've got for you today. Let's take a look at the miners real quick, just for funsies. What's going on with the miners? We're down or plus 0.5% on CleanSpark today. Not much has changed. It's kind of a dull day on them, to be honest. I looked this morning, not much is going on. We're up, 0.82% on on Mara. What about Riot? What's Riot doing? It's down 0.2%. They're mostly flat on the day. Bitfarms is up 0.5%. Not really doing anything. Bit Digital was up big this morning, but it's kind of cooled off. It's actually up 8% now. Wow. Wow. We got Bit Digital getting really exciting here. It's if you've been watching for a while, Bit Digital is one of my favorites. I've got a fairly sizable position here, and it is growing further. Wow, this is really nice. I like Bit Digital right now. It's looking good. Looking good. Let's see. What about Cipher warrants? Cipher warrants are actually up 5% today. $113. Not bad. I actually upped my sell order on this. I actually changed it to be up here about between 210 and 220 because I'm looking for that summer rally that may come, and I'd be very excited about. I'm thinking since we're basing above $1, we might make that run for the $2 range again. So I raised it from the 153 that I said previously. I raised my sell order on my 1,000 shares of Cypher warrants up to about 217-ish in that range. I can't remember exactly. I know it's between 210 and 220. I raised it up there, waiting for that summer rally. So I decided if it goes back under $1, I'll load up even more, and I'd be looking to sell around that $2 range in there with Cypher warrants. Let's see, what about Cypher itself? Underlying up minus 1.56%. What about IREN? What's going on with IREN? Up 2% today, not doing bad. It actually went for a bit of a run since May 14th, so that's not bad. It's got an inverse head and shoulders that's actually playing out right now for IREN, and it's going to go to the top of the range, probably around 673. It may even go a little bit higher than that if it's going to take out this previous high here from April 24th. So that's pretty exciting. It might come up to even $7 here off of that inverse head and shoulders on IREN. So good job if you got yourself some IREN. That's pretty cool. Let's take a look at Wolf. See what Wolf is doing. Wolf is up 1.28%. They're in a pretty aggressive descending channel right now. So if this is to break, when this is to break, I should say, I'd be looking at this to move very quickly up to the, I don't know, 13 is the yellow line. I'd be looking for it to very quickly come up to around the yellow line at 228 from its current area around 198 once it breaks that descending channel. And I would expect the 200-day down here at 182. I'd expect that to hold as support, since it has been holding as support, honestly, all the way back from December. So I would be looking for that around support, and then to potentially break this descending channel and come right back up into the 50 and the 20 or the 13, whichever one it is right now, up into that area, up into the 220 to the 230 range for Wolf. Anyways, that's all I've got for you today. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a profitable day.